just before I kick us off, I'd like to let everyone know we are recording the session today, and all of our insights get uploaded, the video is uploaded to our website. So just a notification, we are recording today's session. I'd like to commence by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, and acknowledge their connection to land, sea and community. I pay my respect to elders past, present and those emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the call today. I am working today from the very stormy and hot Turrbal and Yugara country. I'd like to, all of you that have been impacted by the storms, I hope you and your families are safe. We'll kick in. We've got a really big agenda today. We are going to kick off with, we released our insights survey last year. Last insights last month. If you've completed it, that's great. If not, we are going to pause to take 5 minutes now and ask that you scan the QR code to complete. This is an important piece of feedback for us. It's really important. We host these for an hour a month, February to November each year, and so we want to make sure that we're adding value to the time that you commit to attending. So I'll pause here, and we are going to take 5 minutes, and we have some lovely elevator music while you fill in this survey. While you're filling those in, I wanted to reiterate there is a very excellent prize that we'll draw at the end of this session as a way of encouraging you to complete the survey, but also as a way of saying thank you to your participation. So we'll make that draw at the end of the Insights meeting today. Andrew's just asked that he can't access the QR code. There is a link in the chat to this meeting. Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes.
Try down the bottom here. Down here. Just what's this? That's, it should work. Why is that not working? Try clicking that again. Click this button here. Let's try that. Yeah, try that. You still need to turn the volume up. Maybe that's it.
Okay, just give it 30 more seconds and then we'll kick off into the content. Okay, thanks everyone. Really appreciate you taking the time to give us that feedback. As I mentioned, big agenda today. To kick us off, we've got an update from Deb Burgoyne, who has been leading our Vet Workforce Blueprint project. We're in stream 3, which is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of identifying core areas for action that we can activate. I'm going to give a really brief update on national licensing for the electrical trades and just to bring people up to speed with the conversation so far. Christina Bradley is going to walk us through some recent survey work that we've done in our Word on the Street. Then I'll hand to Steve to give an update on the full UEE training product review. Brett Willow-White will talk us through the training product development update of all of the other work that we're doing in TPD land. And our wonderful Kurt will give us a policy update, and then I'll close us out by announcing the winner of our Insights survey. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Deb to walk us through the Vet Workforce Blueprint project. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Anthea. So it seems to be an awful long time since I seem to have spoken to you all about the Blueprint project. We've had quite a busy year, but I wanted to take this time really just to talk about, give you a quick update on where we are with the Vet Workforce Blueprint, talk a little bit about our phase 3 or turning insight into action phase of the project, which is our next phase, and what that looks like and what it's going to mean for the sector as well. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Brilliant. To get you started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the evolution of the blueprint here. So if you think of the blueprint project as operating like a system of connected gears, and that first blue one there is the research phase that we would have referred to as stream 1 and 2. That really is where we were gathering our evidence base and on the system environment, and also what's happening within the wider vet sector in terms of the ecosystem. Sorry, there we go. In terms of the ecosystem, and that was something that we finished in June this year. And the outcome of those first 2 phases were actually 2 reports mapping the baseline grid that talks in detail about the vet system and what we found from our research based on the vet system, but also diagnosing the pressure points, which was our stream 2 report, which talked a little bit more about the wider stakeholder system and the pressure points that stakeholders feel around the vet system as well. So Those 2 reports are now available, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about where to find those later on. So in stream 3, or turning insight into action, as we're calling it, we actually have 3 projects which are going to be kicking off, which link back to that first round of research. The first one is called Partner Ed, and that's really around capacity. So that project is aimed purely at looking at how we build and create for relationships and partnerships between the vet sector and industry, and how we can leverage those to the greatest benefit. The focus is on capacity. What we're looking to do is to increase the capacity in terms of resources, educators, and the qualifications that we can offer. And that in turn drives the next project we have, which is Elevated, which is about educator capability. Because we have increased the capacity, that then frees up our educators to start exploring where they might take their career paths and how they may uplift their capability. Finally, final cog within Insight into Action is Ignited, which is going to be an online showcase where we're going to demonstrate and launch all of the outcomes from the project and make them available across the sector. The idea is that this should accelerate innovation and visibility of what we've been doing, and provide blueprint tools and resources to all of our stakeholders so that they can take on board some of the ideas and look at how they might best implement those into their organisation. And the idea of the Ignited project is that it will in turn drive the system community. So what we're looking to do there is to drive adoption for the ideas and the frameworks and the guides that we've come up with, in order that we can start to have some impact within the system. Where one gear moves, the whole system shifts. So that's a little bit about the evolution of the blueprint. What I'd like to do now is move into what we're actually doing within this third phase of the project. So if we could go to the next slide. So the Insights to Action phase, these are the 3 projects that we just talked about. We're looking to drive system reform, building capability, strengthening partnerships, and enabling scaled innovation across the system. And each stream supports a different lever for change, whether it be policy, practice, delivery, or adoption. So as we've just said, the partnered part of this project means that we're driving system capacity, and we're looking at partnership, collective action, and system impact. And our intent is that we should bring to the table some frameworks, some implementation guides, and some recommendations around how we can build those partnerships and leverage them to the best effect to increase the number of resources and the capability that we have within the vet sector. Then Elevated is all about system capability, and we're looking to give educators a voice, attract and retain the educator talent that we have, and also give some clarity around career pathways for educators as well. So with that in mind, what we're looking to do is to create a professional development framework for our energy educators, and to look at how we can help them grow in terms of their delivery, their digital skills, their innovation skills, and also their professional skills as well. And then finally, we have that system innovation piece, which is Ignited, where we'll be having an online event where we'll be looking to spark ideas, drive adoption of the results of these 2 projects, and also to demonstrate value. So we'll be looking to have we will have an on-site microsite where we will share all of the goodies that we've produced as part of this project. So there'll be the guides, the frameworks, the case studies around this project, and also things like policy recommendations and also some implementation guides and scalability guides is the word I was looking for. So if we can move to the next slide, in terms of all of these 3 projects, who benefits? So every part of the vet ecosystem receives some benefit. So the policymakers will gain clearer insights and visibility of the workforce capability. The RTOs will gain stronger partnerships, resources, and job-ready workforce alignment. Industry will get more responsive future-ready training system and workforce, and educators will gain clear career pathways, capability uplift and recognition. So it ensures that there's a collective impact across the system as well. So this is not an isolated effort in any one area. This is a collective impact that we're hoping that we will receive across the whole system. If we move to the next slide, what we're delivering. Now, to look at what we're delivering, we grouped all our audience for this project into these sections here. So we then aligned the deliverables with each of those audience groupings. So we've got big picture thinkers, which basically refers to government regulators and sector bodies. And what we're looking to produce for them is reporting frameworks, insight summaries, and evaluation evidence. And then if we move to enablers and connectors, they are things like the industry and the RTO leaders. For them, we're looking, again, to provide those partnership frameworks, collaboration toolkits, models and guides. For builders and practitioners, which are all of those educators, project managers across the sector, we're looking to produce pathway maps, CPD frameworks, content and support materials. Innovators and amplifiers, which are the change agents within the sector and those communities of practice, we're looking to showcase the platform, exchange knowledge, and produce some innovation toolkits. So each deliverable is practical, actionable, and it's designed for scaling across the sector as well. So we're hoping to deliver some real value across the sector. If we just move to the next slide very quickly. Thank you. That is what's the plan. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, just to show that these are a staggered start. So if you haven't heard about any of the projects yet, the reason may be that it hasn't just kicked off yet, but it will be over the next few months. We've got really tight timelines here. The first one of our projects partnered is we're looking to complete that in March next year. Elevated will be kicking off very shortly, and we're hoping to do the main body of the piece of work around that during the early in the new year. There will also be a prototype that we'll be testing, piloting, which will take place in March. And then Ignited, we hope to deliver that event in June next year. So you should start to hear about that early next year. And the next slide. So as we move from insight to design, action and adoption, these are the next steps that we're going to be taking. So I'm absolutely thrilled to tell you about our project resources. This is our new project microsite, and we'll be updating that on a very regular basis to make sure that we are sharing with you all of the resources and all of the activities that are happening within the project. You can see there's the link there to the website, but I've also created it within that QR code as well. So if you click on that QR code, that will take you straight to our project page. You can also access that project page from the Powering Skills website. If you go to the Vet Blueprint project, you'll see there's a big button that will take you to that microsite as well. So that will be becoming more and more important over the next few months as we start to produce resources and deliverables, and we'll be posting them on there. You will also, which I think is quite exciting, find on there our first two reports. So the ones that we produced for Stream 1 and 2 that I talked about before, which is mapping the baseline grid and diagnosing the pressure points, they're available for you to download and read there, and we'd love to hear your feedback on any of those. There are buttons at the bottom of that page which will allow you to feedback to us as well. Then, the other three projects, these are an idea of what's coming up. So December 2025, we are looking for partnered at running roundtables and SME interviews. Some of you will already have attended those or have an invitation to those, but they'll be taking place during December. Elevated, we are currently about to launch a skills gap survey that we would love everybody to complete. That will be going out in December. And then towards the end of January, we'll be starting our roundtables and SME interviews for the Elevated project. And in March 2026, we will be commencing our educator CPD research. And that will be the pilot model that we were talking about, where we're going to be making some educational content available to a group of educators to get their feedback on whether or not they think that this is the right type of content that we should be producing and the right framework for them. And then finally, in June 26, we'll be having our showcase event. So you should see invitations coming out for that next year. And that's all I've got for the VET Blueprint today. So I'll hand back to Anthea. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I'll pause here. Does anyone have any questions? And we always encourage questions in the chat. We're also happy to take questions if you just pop your hand up so we can direct the conversation. But very keen to make this conversational rather than us talking at you. I'll just check the chat now. Good one, Stephen. We're all taking a break. Thank you for the applause. Okay, I'll move on. But if you think of something as we go, please pop it in the chat. If you'd like to reach out to Deb to have a conversation, Deb and the team, please do that as well if you'd like to be involved. So next up, I just wanted to provide a brief update on national licensing for the electrical occupations. I know many of you are aware of the latest round of this. So out of the productivity roundtables, the Department of Treasury initiated a consultation on what a national licensing scheme for electrical occupations could look like. And it's part of the national competitions policy reforms. So the aim really is to understand how this model could work. I know a number of us were involved in the NOLs and the previous harmonisation process, and so it's interesting to see it makes sense on paper. There's a lot of complexities that we face here, given that each state and territory has its own regulatory frameworks and different requirements to gain an electrical licence. The key aspects that the Treasury put a call for input, which closed in September. They're processing all of the submissions that were put in. What they're really looking to understand is how to build a national consistency across the electrical licence in Australia, to identify what the economic impacts are. They are looking to have this work completed and in place by 2027. And there is the commencement of their consultation framework, as I mentioned, closed in September, but I imagine early next year there will be more work done to design and develop a scheme. It's part of a broader set of productivity reforms, which is why the Department of Treasury have carriage over this. I know that's been a slightly confusing component of this time around, but certainly the Treasurer, Minister Chalmers, sees this as being a key productivity reform measure. So we are still working through, as in PSO, we're still working through the role that we might play in supporting the facilitation of the development of what that framework could look like. We will, as we get greater guidance from DUA, Treasury and our board, we'll come back with a more detailed approach and what we think our role is in this conversation. It helps that we are non-partisan. We support all of our stakeholder groups We're already facilitating a number of, through the reform of the full UEE training package, we already have a number of stakeholder groups that are aligned to this conversation. So there is increasingly an expectation that we play a role in facilitating that. So watch this space. Certainly happy to field questions. Just noting I won't be able to answer all of them. We don't yet have a defined this is PSO's role. So, but I wanted to flag it here because it looks like it will become a fairly big piece of our work in 2026. Happy to pause for questions. Also happy to move on to the next area of conversation. Look, the chat's very quiet today. I will hand over to Christina.
Thanks, Anthea. We just want to give you an update on a research piece that we've put out recently. It's on our website. So the word on the street about the HVAC&R industry. We have partnered with the Australian Institute of Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heating, so ERA, Australian Refrigeration Council, being ARC, and then the Australian the Air Conditioning and Mechanical Contracting Association of Australia, which is AMCAR, earlier this year, and we put out a survey through our partners, these peak bodies, and the industry responded really well to this, and we got over 526 responses. The survey asked our participants a number of questions relating to the training package, which we will take back into and feed into the UEE full training product review for the HVAC&R qualifications. On the slide, there are a few quotes from the survey, but if you haven't read it yet, we have put it up onto our website on the project page. Under the progression tab, and there's the QR code there for you to look at or to scan, and you can download the report yourself. So the word out there is, and I think this will be no surprise to those that work in the HVAC&R industry, is that there is a chronic shortage of skilled trainers. So linking back to Deb's project within the VET system, which is having an impact on the quality of training because we're not getting students through fast enough or, in a timely manner. So with that, the feedback was that there needs to be some investment in upskilling educators in the new technologies and new ways of working of the industry, and recruit new trainers into the vet sector, which Deb's project will solve all those problems for us. The Cert 3 in air conditioning and refrigeration, our stakeholders stated that it is seen as too broad and it's resulting in insufficient depth of knowledge in specialised fields such as the commercial and refrigeration inducting systems. So we'll be taking that back to the SME group. We also heard quite loud that the respondents consistently called for more hands-on workplace integrated training, noting that there is some lack of practical skills in areas such as brazing, leak testing, mechanical troubleshooting and commissioning. So we're looking into that more, and that the respondents also highlighted really clearly that in addition to the hard skills and that those technical skills, they wanted people to have better work generic skills such as customer service communication and time management, as well as empathy. And when we look at who was part of this or who responded to the survey, majority of those that responded were small to medium enterprises who have a direct link into and communicates with the public on a daily basis. So overall, there was a strong sentiment from those that completed the survey that the HVAC and ARS qualifications within the UEE training product needs to be reviewed to ensure that it aligns with current and future trade requirements and standards. From here, we are working with AMCA, ERA and ARC to progress this research and dive deeper down into what exactly the respondents meant by some of their feedback. So coming into the first part of next year, we will be conducting targeted interviews with apprentices, employers and RTOs to unpack that feedback further and produce a more in-depth report and job analysis, function analysis as a result of the final research. In addition to that, when you do read the report, there are recommendations in terms of looking at jurisdictional settings a bit more closely, as well as the Cert 2 and split systems more closely as well. So that's what we'll be doing this early next year. And that is the word on the street for our most important people out there, keeping us cool and sometimes warm, depending on where you are in this country. So over to Steve for an update on the full UEE review.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, no, I'll run with it. I'll bypass Anthea. She'll yell at me later, undoubtedly. But it's a great opportunity for us to sort of wrap up where we've got to this year. Before we jump to the next slide, though, Kaya, just to let you know, we've had a number of SME groups. We had our technical committee meeting yesterday, getting some really great feedback from those members. We're seeing some brilliant insights into how we can improve things across the UEE training package, and particularly making sure that we're focusing on fixing some of the things that we know aren't right with it, but also to looking at how we can make it right for the future, which then leads me to the next slide. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been in the energy industry for about 50 years, give or take 15. I'm not quite that old, but for the last 15 or so, I've been involved in the vet sector. And I came in when the 07 package was in vogue. Loved it, thought it was a brilliant package because I didn't really understand anything about vet at that point other than what I had learned through the TAE. But undoubtedly, if you've been along from the journey, I have been in the industry for 36 years, so certainly been around electrical, and I did my trade in non-UEE. There was no existence of that qualification at the time or that training package. But if we look at the current state of play, we know that the UEE has 74 qualifications, 75 skill sets, and 545 units of competency as we currently sit. And it's no great surprise that when we asked that question, why the UEE, it certainly was asked last time when we went from the 11 to the 20 package, but the UEE is a massive beast. When you compare it to all of the enrolments across all of the training packages that have existed since 2015 to 2025, over 10 years, you can see at a unit enrolment level, there's been 5,417,256 in the UEE electrotechnology package. Distantly second is our UET, where we've seen 724,768 enrolments across all of the units of competency. Now, that's not to say that we don't value all of the four that we have. They are all of equal importance to us, and none come second in terms of how we view their import or how we deal with them. But one thing we do know is that when you play in the UEE space, it has a direct impact on the other three. So in the magical words of Maximus, for those of you who are Gladiator fans, what we do in life echoes in eternity. We certainly wanted to set the UEE up in particular so that it didn't have a negative impact on the other three, but equally too started to address some of the things that we knew would be happening across the next 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. Goodness knows, hopefully I'll be retired or semi-retired by that stage. But nonetheless, we know that there are some major changes that we need to incorporate in the UEE, and that's why we started with that one. So if we jump to the next slide, thanks, Kaya. You'll see that so there's a bit of a roadmap here of some of the work that's already happened and things that we know are continuing on at this point of time, and how the full UEE review underpins and also overarches some of that work. For those of you who aren't aware, back in 2023, Energy Skills Australia worked with ERAC and invited us to be part of the advisory committee for the EPC review. Now, being wary that I'm using an acronym and making this as accessible as possible, that is the Essential Performance Capabilities for Electricians. So ERAC, which is the Electrical Regulatory Authorities Council, another great acronym for us to work on, they had decided over many years and have published it in a number of times what the essential performance capabilities are for an electrician. So no great surprise, they need to map exactly to the training package. And they also incorporate some of the stuff that happens in the Australian standards. So we share our standard with New Zealand, so it's AS-NZS 3000. So as the EPC review was going on, and I just saw Anthea's typing in there my acronym explainer, so I'll try and recall them out as I go through. If you haven't worked out who PSO, that's us, Powering Skills Organisation. But as part of one of our projects is we took it on board early on in our piece to map those EPCs to the UEE. Some of you were involved in that project, and our team did a brilliant job in making sure that that was the foundational piece to ensure that we weren't going to miss anything. You'd appreciate it if you're a young apprentice and you're turning up to a TAFE or to an industry RTO, that you're expecting to be trained on the latest and greatest, but also to making sure that you're fully prepared to be able to work in a compliant way with the Australian standards and the underpinning requirements of those capabilities that we expect of an electrician. So while that was going on, the AS-NZS 3000 review kicked off. Again, looking at the Australian Standard for Wiring Rules, we know that the last edition of that was in 2018, had a number of amendments that came out rather quickly, and there was a great body of work that was put forward that should go into the next version of AS-NZS 3000. So EL1 doesn't get shortened down. That is the technical name of the name of the technical committee that looks after AS-NZS 3000. It's a big committee. There's well over 25 people who sit on that committee from all different parts of industry. The idea being is that they look at the existing issues and making sure that they get incorporated into the new Australian standard, which is scheduled for release in 2027. And that number should actually stick in your mind, because our goal at the moment is that we will be releasing the full UEE review in 2027. So it'll be a UEE 27 release. So it does line up with a number of pivotal works, those foundational elements that we've worked on along the way. But also, too, we thought we would throw in a couple of extra projects to really underpin and inform some of the work that's been happening in the UEE full review. So the first one of those was mapping licence pathways. We actually started this work before any discussion was held around national licensing. Sometimes we manage to read the room before it even is full. And in that case there, we thought this is actually a really piece of valuable work, knowing that the EPCs, those essential performance capabilities, lead to a licensing outcome. So we needed to understand what are the pathways to a license in each state and jurisdiction around Australia. And are there any peculiarities, any unique elements that one state has over another, and how that would impact how we inform the training package, but also craft those units of competency that go in there. Yeah. So what have we got there? Steve Harrison, IL1. Yes, there are more than 23. There's certainly a lot. When we look at the next part of that project there is the mapping of capstone. I think it's really important to note that the capstone itself is different in different states and means different things to different people. But ultimately, across the country, we understand that there needs to be a final assessment for licensing purposes. How does that fit together with those licensing pathways, and how does it live within the full UEE training package, noting that there are also alternative methods or alternative pathways to an electrical license in some jurisdictions. So when we put all of that work together, what we're hoping to do is start to build the training package and the UEE in particular in such a foundational way that it's not going to, as we said earlier, impact negatively the other three training packages that we look after, but equally to set it up in such a way that as we move through the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we've already built the foundation, so we're not having to go back to the drawing board every single time there's a new technology or a new skill set required. You know, another big piece of work that PSO, as all the jobs and skills councils are required to do, is look at our workforce planning. And we put out a workforce plan looking at where the challenges are in our industry. Where are the skills needs developing? Are there any skills gaps that we have to address? And they are the way that we inform the training package to ensure that the latest and greatest training is being delivered in a timely manner to industry. So it's so important for us to make sure we had all of these other pieces of work going on pre the UEE training package, but also sitting side by side now, the full UEE review, so that we can get to eternity. So as Maximus would say, at some point I'll hopefully be walking through a field, running my hands through the wheat and keeping pleasant memories in my mind of the time that I worked on this training package and the ones in the previous iterations. But ultimately, that is why we started with the UEE. Our expectation is that within the next sort of 3 to 6 months, we'll start the planning process. In fact, we've already started plotting out across the TPD team what the next iteration of the UEG P&T will look like, starting to slot it in to our activity submissions that we have to put into the JUA for our funding, but equally to then look at how we can incorporate industry into that journey. On to eternity, as they say. I could have used a Toy Story one, but I decided to go with Gladiator. So for those of you who enjoy both of those movies. So that's a lot of information I've just thrown at you. I did notice that we've got a couple of questions from Michael.
Steve,
yep.
Yeah, I was just going to read. So Michael Cadman has said, is there a plan to include MACG gap training pathway into this capstone review?
Short answer, yes. So one of the things that we are looking at is under that mapping of licence pathways is the TRA pathways. We know it's really important to be able to utilise our immigrant workforces. We know there are a lot of people who would like to come and work in Australia, and equally too, there are certain projects that require expertise from overseas. So being able to ensure that those people are suitably qualified, then that's the role of TRA, but also too that the licensing system supports and underpins a good quality outcome for those workers. So the gap training is part of that clearly, but also the TRA process through the OTSR and the pathways that come through in that. And I know I've just gone and used a whole bunch of more acronyms, so I do apologise, but the Offshore Technical Skills Record is the pathway for people who are coming from overseas to be recognised so that they can start the training, that minimum Australian context gap training, to be able to undertake a licence. So for those of you who are unaware of those pathways.
Sorry, Steve. Oh, that's great. There is a question from Michelle. I'll let you answer that in the chat, Steve, if that's all right, just for the purposes of time.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. That was really informative. I'll hand over to Brett Willowhite to give us an update on all of the other work that we're doing. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Azia. So just a bit of an update on some of the other projects we've got going. So the Energy Sector Gateway project, it's actually formed two parts in the end. So there were some initial fixes on the Cert 2 in Electro-Technology Career Start and the Cert 2 in Sustainable Energy Career Start, which was mostly around superseded units that sat in the core of those. So that's now complete, and they're actually been published onto the National Training Vet Register, or training.gov, as most of you will know it. So the other part B to that is the creation of a new qualification, the Certificate 2 Gateway to the Energy Sector. And this has recently been out through its public and government consultation period. And we did receive valuable feedback on the draft qual and its associated units. The PSO team and the Tech Committee reviewed all that feedback, and revisions have been made where it was required to ensure alignment with stakeholder expectation based around that feedback. A summary of the key themes and PSO responses is now available on our project website, along with the draft training products. The consultation period is now closed, and we're finalising our submission to the assurance body. Thanks again to all the stakeholders who contributed their time and expertise during that consultation, and also the Tech Committee developing the drafts. The low enrolments project is now complete, and you'll see that QR code on the screen that will take you to the final report recommendations. And the recommendations for the UEE in particular have been incorporated into that full UEE review that Steve was just talking about. Our V2X accreditation, Vehicle to Everything, the Tech Committee is currently working through the development and drafting stage of this project. Final drafts are being prepared after their latest meeting for the Tech Committee to review before they're released for public and government consultation. So keep your eye out for some news around that coming soon. The UET High Voltage Rubber Cable Elective Unit, it's in its very final stages of completion. It's with the Skills Minister for endorsement, having been through the Juror Assurance Body, and they've recommended endorsement of that. So once those training products have been endorsed at Skills Minister level, they'll be released on training.gov as well, and we'll inform you through our project page, emails and socials. The mapping training products to regulations and licensing. National engagement's underway. Matt is out visiting with various other members of the training package development team, RDOs and key stakeholders across Australia, gaining their insights at this stage of the project into the electrical capstone unit known as EL39 to those who deliver it. And lastly, but certainly not least, our First Nations bespoke qualification. PSO is happy to announce we've joined with Jura Advisory to co-design the outcomes for this project. The First Nation people's energy literacy skill set, initial drafts are with Jura for review and feedback, along with the cultural practices members from the TAFE Queensland Centre of Excellence for Clean Energy Batteries. And that's the update on our other projects. So over to you, Kurt.
Thanks for that, Brett. Good morning, everyone. Last time I covered policy developments in Queensland, so I thought this month I'll give a brief overview of what's happening on the other side of the country, and so we're going to be looking at Western Australia. So as we discussed last time, Queensland wants to keep coal in the energy mix longer and reduce the emphasis on renewables in their energy transition. However, WA is moving in the opposite direction. So WA operates its own grid, and it's on track to retire its state-owned coal plants by the end of the decade. While gas will remain a significant part of WA's energy mix, the state is rapidly expanding its renewables and storage capacity. So the state-owned network company Western Power said back in July that WA has about 12 gigawatts of solar, wind and battery projects lined up to plug into the grid. And you look even further into the future, there's major projects that are being proposed, like the Australian Renewable Energy Hub in the Pilbara, which potentially could add up to 26 gigawatts of generation capacity, along with green hydrogen and green ammonia production by around the mid-2030s. So there's been a lot of talk about net zero recently. In WA, the state government is committed to net zero by 2050. However, the state remains the only state that is without a emissions reduction or renewable energy target. That is until Queensland completes its repeal. But last month, the WA government revealed it would introduce legislation for some form of targets in the new year. So while they remain tight-lipped about what sort of targets they're considering, the state government has said it's their goal to make the WA economy a globally competitive clean energy powerhouse. And it's made several recent announcements that show that it's putting together initiatives to make that goal a reality. And some of the examples of this include the State Development Bill that's currently before the WA Parliament. And the WA government says its purpose is to accelerate the investment and fast-track approvals for major strategic projects, and that includes clean energy projects. And back in September, the WA government released a comprehensive transmission plan outlining how it's going to upgrade its grid to support the clean energy transition and unlock over 2 gigawatts of new generation before 2030. And back in July, the WA government also set up its own residential battery scheme. So this $337 million rebate and loans scheme complements the federal cheaper home battery program, and it's estimated to benefit around 100,000 WA households with the combined funding of the state and federal programs. So what does this mean for training? WA's growing generation storage and transmission pipeline will significantly increase the demand for workers in the energy trades. The local energy trades workforce has seen strong growth with record number of energy apprentices in training. However, just like the rest of the country, this strong growth for the workforce the strong demand for the workforce is exceeding its growth. So PSO's 2025 workforce plan estimated WA will need 5,000 more energy trades workers by 2030, and that apprentice numbers will need to grow by around 40% to meet this demand. But it seems both the federal and state governments there seem to recognise this, and they're putting together a range of joint initiatives and investments to boost the WA clean energy workforce. And some recent examples of this joint investment has included the $3.3 million Midland TAFE renewables facility, which has just been completed, and that facility will allow around 350 TAFE students to train there as of the beginning of 2026. Also, earlier this year, over $70 million was announced to establish a TAFE Clean Energy Skills National Centre of Excellence in WA. So this investment will expand clean energy training across Perth, but also in regional centres, including Kalgoorlie, Albury, Bunbury, Geraldton, Karratha and Broome. And WA is also notable in that it provides funding for the infrastructure needs of independent training providers through a capital grants program as part of their construction training fund. So the 25-26 grant round just closed in October, and there's now $6 million available. And this is a great program because we know that in the previous round, most of the grants that were awarded directly benefited projects that expand the training capacity for the energy sector specifically. And that's why in our recent policy report, PSO recommended that other states establish similar types of funding programs in their jurisdictions. But PSO knows that there's still a lot more to be done, and we've been increasing our engagement with the WA government. So going forward, we'll keep monitoring these developments for their implications for skills and training. So thank you very much for your time. I'll now hand over, I think, for a prize draw.
Thanks, Kurt. Really informative, as always. Really enjoying your policy updates. So, before we hit the drum roll and full live out of a hat, I just wanted to reiterate again, thank you for your feedback. It really does matter to us. We want to make sure that this series in 2026 is fit for purpose and it is improved based on your feedback. We have a prize draw, which is an all expenses paid conference of your choice in Australia in 2026. Just the asterisk, there's always terms and conditions, so that's based on PSO's travel policy guidelines and includes any conference on Australian territory in each state and territory. So it's a really cool prize. We're really happy to offer it. And Kaya, I will hand over to you this is being done live. We've never done this before. We're using a website to draw a name out of a hat. So, I mean, hijinks could be expected. Kaya, I'll hand over to you to get that. Yep. Okay. And the winner is Paris Lee from Aspen Medical. Excellent. That's wonderful. Thanks, Paris. Thanks for your contributions over this year. And thank you to everyone. We really do appreciate the importance of your input. We are only as strong as the input and the stakeholders and our connection with the stakeholders. So really do very much appreciate all of you. This is our last session for the year. We, on purpose, don't hold external events if we can avoid it in December and January because we've all got far too many things on our plate. But again, I wish you all a very safe and your families a very safe and restful break over the holiday period. I hope you all get a chance to rest and recharge, and we'll see you all fresh-faced back in the Insights Monthly in February 2026. Thank you, everyone.